you, Marvin. That was really inspiring. So back in 2016, you took my then 14-year-old daughter out to day, inspiring her. She's now 21 and is still a race activist trying to make change with disruption. What is your advice to those of that in their 20s, over 18, who want to make a difference? What is your advice? How do you stop burnout? How do you make a difference?
So someone once said to me, you can't boil the ocean. I think it's a really wise piece of wise advice. Right? It is what it says on the tin. Don't try and boil the ocean. If she's 20, she'll have another 60, 70 years on the planet to do stuff. So she doesn't have to do everything by the time she's 23. And actually, it's no bad thing to not focus on output and focus on input. So I'm going to use a biblical image here, right? I'm a Christian, so I'm not asking you to take it on, I'm just going to use the image. Before people launched out into their calling, they were often taken into the wilderness. Right? Jesus in the wilderness, Moses in the wilderness, Abraham in the wilderness, right? Paul went to the wilderness. And that's a time of reflection and readying for what's going to come. And so we've got to be careful, we can't just run on output. So it's okay for her to invest in herself, her skills, get stuff together, and then launch out. And what I would also say is something I've never done, so it's do as I say, not as I do. Do try and think 10 years ahead, 15 years ahead, where you want to be. I was elected in my 40s. You know, I remember I turned 27, and I was like on edge. I was like, Martin Luther King was 27 when he took over the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. What am I doing? When I turned 30, I was like, Jesus was 30 when he started. What am I doing? It's like, man, just relax, Martin. Relax. Surely, you got time. And that's what I would say. Just, injustice isn't going anywhere. There's plenty of it to go around. Invest in yourself, take time, make a long-term plan.
Hi, thank you, Marvin, and Jules. Brilliant questions. I'm a little bit nervous, so do forgive me. 8 years, so inspiring, so fantastic from you and Dasha as someone who lives in Bristol. I feel quite emotional about it, really, what you've achieved. You've had this responsibility, really, huge responsibility, and you want to know that it's going to be taken care of. A little question from me, really, is, 50% of the existing council have stepped down, and it's changing shape, the template, really, on the thing that you've really nurtured and valued and taken forward. I know you have the Legacy Foundation, which again is absolutely, truly remarkable. But what are your concerns? Are you handing over something you've taken care of? Do you have any concerns about the future for Bristol, really?
So I kind of almost sidestepped it before. I will share concerns, but I cannot carry those concerns beyond my 8 years. Right? One is it's probably not good for me, and I don't think it would be healthy for the city, right? For me to be out there, I've got to rearview mirror that, and I may regret using that phrase, but what are my concerns? Over the last few years, one of the things I've talked a lot about is complexity. And by complexity, I mean this. Two things can be true at the same time that are very difficult to hold together. I'll give you an example. Do I want the statue of Colston up in the middle of the city? No. Can I, as a mayor, condone people hauling statues down? No. Those two things are difficult to hold together, right? So that's one. Second, my other point about complexity is that good things can have negative consequences for some people, right? So, clean air zone. Do we need to improve the quality of our air? Yes. Do we risk financially disadvantaging the most financially vulnerable people if we put interventions in? Yes. Is that the case across restructuring we have to go to decarbonise our economy? Yes, that's why we make a commitment to just transition. So that doesn't mean you don't do the good thing. It just means you have to be aware that some people could be disadvantaged by that good thing, and then you have to take action to mitigate it. And I think the other thing I would, well, let me just stop with those two. Now, my concern about that is that the way we do public debate in the city is infantile. It's all about the conflict. It's not about the nuance. So I'll give you another example, right? You may know me in the city as the guy that wants to plaster the city in skyscrapers, right? But would you know about the subtleties of the discussion? Bristol has 42 square miles. Our population is 478,000 people. Right? It's going to grow to 550,000 by 2050. That's another 75,000 people in Bristol. Our housing situation at the moment, 21,000 people on the housing waiting list. 1,200 to 1,300 people in temporary accommodation. That population growth is happening on top of that housing crisis. So the question is, do you want to build homes? Well, most people would say yes. So where are you going to build them? Well, we would say, let's build them on brownfield land. Why? Because we want to protect land for nature. We want to protect land for employment. We need land for transport. We need land for leisure. So everything's competing for that 42 square miles, right? So you want to build as many homes as you can on brownfield sites as possible. Every home you do not put on a brownfield site, you have to find another piece of land to put it on. That increases pressure on greenfield sites. So it's not that you are making a spiritual commitment to building high. You're saying we have a finite land area, we've got growing numbers of people to build. How do we provide those houses without consuming greenfield and making the city sprawl into nature? And by the way, if we build centrally, I had someone complaining the other day, and Facebook, I shouldn't have looked. Too many people living in the city centre. Where are their cars going to go? Well, that's the point. If you build homes in the middle of the city, people don't need cars. There's employment, there's retail, there's entertainment, all within walking distance. Right? So you're designing transport needs out of a city. Are any of you aware of that debate being facilitated, which is the debate we've actually been having in city leadership, as the public being put in touch with the subtleties of that discussion? Or is it just, he's bullying people, wants to build tall buildings, skyscrapers, controversy, crash, bang, wall up, hits back, wades in? If we don't have the ability to have nuanced conversations, we will not as a city be in a position to make wise decisions, but also to have informed frameworks through which we judge the actions of our political leadership. So we'll end up judging them through a framework of anger rather than nuance. And then we will get the politics we deserve, right? Which is a dangerous thing, which would be very dangerous. We'll get clickbait politics if we have a clickbait debate.
Any other questions? Yeah.
The Legacy Foundation, it's a foundation? Legacy
So, Asha, do you want to talk to that?
Yes.
I don't want
The Legacy.
What is it? Because you mentioned it a few times.
Okay, so, oh my gosh, I think it was just before COVID. So as you know, as a city, over many, many years, there have been a range of different organisations that have been looking at how we address Bristol's role in the transatlantic trafficking of enslaved Africans. And we are even changing the language. We don't use slavery or enslaved, we're talking about trafficking. And so this city was really good at hiding its light under a bushel. It was great at praising Colston and all of the so-called wonderful things that he did. But even, many of you, but so many people in this city, including our own communities, were walking around or were born in this city. I know people who were like 50, 60 years old and told me that they didn't even realise that Bristol was a slave city. Okay? So just before COVID hit, I was being contacted by the different organisations, everybody from kind of Cargo, the Society of Merchant Venturers, the University of Bristol, all of these different players, and they were saying, what are you and Marvin going to do about, slavery in Colston? What are you going to do about it? And I thought, well, hold on a minute here. We have a whole list of priorities that we needed to address. And addressing the slave trade was way down on the agenda. But when people were hitting me left, right and centre, I thought, you know something, I'm going to bring you all into a room. And I organised a meeting at the M Shed, chaired by Professor Olivette Latelli. I invited in all of the campaigners and activists who have been engaged in this agenda. And I said, you know something, I want you to all we're going to talk to each other and share the vision about how we're going to address Bristol's role in the slave trade. And as a result, 4 years on, what was then the Bristol Legacy Group, we've now constituted as the Bristol Legacy Foundation. We launched, was it last month, officially last month. We have identified the B-Bond warehouse, the former tobacco bonded warehouse, with its own links to slavery, as the site for what we will calling the Story House. So Bristol will have its museum, but it will be on a kind of international level. We're looking to raise £50 million. We are talking to international partners. There's so much stuff going on, but we have partners engaged in the work that we are doing, and I think from the launch, it's actually been quite overwhelming. So what's important, it's led by people of African heritage. No more paternalism. That's not how we're going to do it. We were never asked. We were never asked about putting up the statue of Colston, or how, no one ever asked us anything. So we've gone out, had a conversation with people of African heritage. We've produced a report, Project Truth, which sets out the kind of the next steps that we're going to take over the next 10 years. But we're kicking off with a memorial at Cascade Steps. So where Colston went into the water, we're going to put a new memorial, and we're going to go out and invite an artist to do that. We're bringing the globes. We had funded the World Reimagined, who did a series of globes last year. Those globes are sitting at City Hall now, and we're going to put a trail out in the city during the summer. And we're going to negotiate. We've just entered a memorandum of understanding with the Bristol City Council, but we're also going to have a conversation with all of our other partners, because we're going to turn things on top of its head. We're not playing the same kind of games, or we're not playing on a level playing field when it comes to power and dynamics and money. Black people we don't have the resource, but we're seeking reparatory justice. And so watch this space. But you can go on our website, and if you want to get involved in the work that we're doing, please do come forward.
So what's it called?
It's called, it's the Bristol Legacy Foundation. Okay.
Thank you. Marvin, just to follow up on what you were saying about the debate happening in the nuances, and I'm just wondering, how did you communicate that to the people of Bristol, that you had to weigh up these opposing spectrums to make decisions, and what those nuances are? That's the first thing. And how do you think that should be going forward, now we're going into this committee-style leadership, so that the people of Bristol are kind of not brought in, but at least carried along and understand the complexities of the decisions that you guys have to make?
So how I did communicate is just by doing this. I mean, I face, I'll give you an example of how it gets done. I do questions. I used to do, I'm going to burst the bubble this, by the way. During COVID, I started doing a weekly press conference with journalists. And I would, you look at the YouTubes, I would say every time, same thing I said to Jules, I said to you, ask me anything you want. Right? I'd say to them, you can ask me anything you want. I would give them a bit of a preamble. And then I said, about COVID numbers or housing or something. And then at the end of their questions, I'd say, have you asked me everything you want to ask me? And do you know what? I did that every single press conference because I knew the narrative would be, Marvin doesn't like questions. And I said to my office the other day, if you had a spare 3 hours, she hasn't, could you go and clip every time I said, ask me anything you want, and you ask me everything you want to ask me? Are you sure? right? Because I said it every time. And what happened? I had the opportunity in those to kind of talk a bit more. But they actually, interestingly, we used to do them weekly. We ended up reducing them to bi-weekly because they had no questions. It was literally getting embarrassingly boring. So, and then I went and did my TED talk in Vancouver, and they made a big thing of it. Marvin flies X thousand miles to give a 10-minute talk. Why don't you do it by Zoom? Well, TED is in person. Bill Gates is there. I'll go what my Mayor of Bristol says. No, I know Bill Gates has to be there, but can I do it by Zoom? It don't work like that. And we were influencing, and then there was a little bit of a kind of controversy with that, and then the journalists said, we're boycotting your press conference, so they stopped coming. So I did that. You know, I speak at full council. We do my blog. I will say I was at my sister's house once. It was a 9-night, and someone said to me, Marv,
does everyone know what a 9-night is?
oh, go on then, you do it.
Well, it's a very much a Caribbean tradition how we celebrate the dead when they pass, and people come together over 9 nights to remember their passing.
So I'll try and be quick as I can. So basically, someone said to me, Marv, people in the community say they don't know what you're doing. I said, take your phone out. Takes your phone out. I said, open up the browser. Open up the browser. I said, type Marvin Rees blog. Type my name in. I said, what does it say? Child hunger. I scroll down. What does it talk about? Housing. I said, how long did that take? 8 seconds. So if in our community you can't take 8 seconds to go out and find out what I'm doing, what am I supposed to do? Come out, cook everyone dinner and explain the agenda every day? It can't work like that. We have to have agency to find out what's going on and to find out the nuance of these debates. So we do the blog, we do the talks. And then we are dependent, again, listen, I'm at the end of my time, we're dependent on the journalism in the city. I'll give you an example of how this went, right? So before the Clean Air Zone came in, some doctors came and asked me a question, and they say, you're delaying implementing the Clean Air Zone. This is killing people. My point was, we're not delaying the Clean Air Zone. What we are doing is recognizing if we just start charging people for their cars, there'll be some people who are financially disadvantaged. So what we're doing is we're trying to negotiate a financial package with central government to support households and businesses through the transition. Right? We end up getting £14 million, £32 million for business. Some of it went into buses. It goes into bus tickets, bike loan scheme, but grants to help people transition their vehicles over. So they spoke. Actually, they were opposition. They were from a political party. I won't say which one. And they said, we are NHS doctors. Right, there's my badge of authority. I'm from the NHS. You, Marvin Rees, are killing people. So there, I'm under attack now. Right? So I said, we're trying to make sure we have a just transition. But allow me to, and I would say, remember the aggression line. I said, allow me to present something back to you. And you'll see in my press conferences the number of times I will say to people, can I just gently say this back to you? If you look through the tapes, you'll see me say that a lot, because I know what's going to happen. He hits back, he's thin-skinned, he doesn't like criticism. No, we're entering into debate now. You're doctors, you're PhDs, I can come back. So I said to them, that it's great that you're coming to talk about what the Bristol City Council's doing, but we have 2 huge hospitals in Bristol. The National Health Service is one of the 5 biggest organisations on the planet. I read out some stats from the National Health Service about their contributions to road journeys and emissions and accidents on the street. It's NHS numbers. I said, so this is the NHS's own account of its contribution to road traffic. I would be really interested to know what you are going to do as NHS employees to speak into your own organisation about its own transport plans. I think that's okay. What do you think the headline was? Marvin attacks the NHS. Marvin blames the NHS for road journey, and there was no space to have like a serious conversation. So you're supposed to just sit there, and we lost the opportunity as a city to then think that actually cleaning up the air quality is not just about local government implementing laws. It's about looking at the collection of institutions in the place, thinking about how they manage their transport plans. You know, both in terms of customer users, or patients, service, staff, and supply chains, right? Whether they're coming in. That has been an incredible frustration over the time.
Thank you. I hope that
Try and
answers
avoid the
your
word frustration.
question.
It's been a good time being there. There are some things.
Thank you, Marvin. We are really coming to the tail end of our Q&A. But using your turn of phrase, have you asked everything you want to ask? Well, I can see quite a few hands. I'm gonna take a little bit of my bias here. We've got Unite the Union, who were actually formerly TGWU, the union that had the colour bar for the bus drivers. So please, I'm gonna come out to you. Unless you want to come up to me at the front.
Good to see you again. So my question was about the Labour Party and particularly membership in the Labour Party of black and brown communities. So there's been a lot of geopolitical events going on, and my personal experience is a lot of the community have been leaving the Labour Party. You and Asher have been leaders, people standing up to show this is what leadership looks like. Do you still see the community being part of the Labour Party, building that groundswell of people to be the next Asher and Marvin?
Well, look, I mean, there's a lot in, we'd have a long chat about that. But this is even before I was in politics, and I think Guy would testify to this when I was networks manager for the consortium of black groups in Bristol. I've said in a number of meetings, if you're waiting for the perfect invitation to come along, to get involved in the perfect political party, in a perfect political system, it ain't coming. I bring my imperfect self to get involved in an imperfect political party, in a broken political system, in a fallen world. That's the only option. So, in many ways, I don't join, and I've said this, I hear people say, I join, if you cut me open, you find the Labour party running through my core. I've actually said this in my book a little bit. You won't find the Labour Party running through my core as the core sense of who I am. What you'll find is a collection of experiences, growing up a black kid, growing up a mixed kid, chased down the street, single mum, lived in a refuge. That's what you'll find makes me up, right? And I look around and I think, well, the world is run by those who turn up. I can be on the touchline and not get involved, or I can try and make the best of a very challenging situation and do something. The Labour Party is the place I found where I'm trying to, where I find the most, alliances. What I would say is I hear some people saying, well, I would actually say abandoning politics is a middle class luxury as well, because actually those who mostly if you're of a client, I'm not saying you are, but I've heard some people say you may as well gamble everything rather than get less than perfection. Or most of us don't live like that when we're in a world that says no sometimes. We know we've got to take what we can sometimes. And if people are of a background where it doesn't matter who's in power, and I've heard that even around the Colston stuff, that means you've got personal assets. Good for you. For most of us, subtle changes in national policy can make a world of difference to what it means to live on this planet, right? Bedroom tax, for example, right? So we need to stay in the game, even when we feel like we let them. Listen, I've just been rejected by the Labour Party. I ran for selection North East. That was a wounding experience. But I'm still in the game, because there's something to get done.
Thank you. A really in-depth conversation. Nothing is being